Good evening, welcome. Since we are the early birds, we're going to give others a chance to jump in. So go ahead and put your city and state in for me. And thank you again for joining us tonight. Good evening to my early birds. Thank you for joining. Going to give some time for others to join us. And we have two guests coming tonight, so we're going to give some time for them to jump in as well.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello, ladies.
Hello. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
No.
Yeah.
Hello. Able to hear me yet?
We can hear.
Okay, cool. Oh, I can't hear you.
Awesome. We've got 4 early birds with us. And so we'll give everyone else some time to jump on in, and hopefully our guests will jump in as well soon. And then we can get started. You ladies have a good day today?
It's been semi-productive, you know.
Good.
Getting a lot of chatter back and forth. You know, people ask questions and you give them answers and they're not happy with the answers. It's like, okay, I didn't know that it was tailored.
It's just a little dance people play.
Yeah, especially when they weren't even a part of the conversation. That's always to interject and then be hostile and visceral about things. You're like, that's very interesting.
No.
We have Atlanta, Georgia.
Nice.
Right.
And Henrico, Virginia.
Virginia, yes, that's right down the street from me.
Is that close to you? I was going to ask that. And
Yep.
I didn't know if you wanted the people to know where you were.
I'm 19 miles. Nobody want to come here, so it don't even matter where I am. Everybody knows that I'm a step away from that place. They're like, oh yeah, we're not coming to visit you. Nobody wants to be here.
Oh, goodness. Hi, Ollie in Highland, Indiana. in San Diego.
Find my... Hello, everyone. Welcome. Where's the stuff?
Oh, good. Let's get hello.
Hello.
Oh,
Hi,
there.
Carlin. How are you?
I'm well. How are you doing?
Doing well.
Great.
Clear.
Gonna give our guests some time to come in.
And let me see if I can locate our logo. Put up here. Let's see.
There we are. How many are you all expecting this afternoon?
You know, it varies. Sometimes we end up with a little less than 100, and sometimes we have a little bit more. So it really varies.
Okay.
This is a hot topic, so I would imagine we're going to have quite a few tonight, though.
And what's the time?
So we hope to go for about 45 minutes, if that's okay.
Okay. Sounds good. And what's the format?
So really, I'll introduce you guys to the community. We'll hear a little bit about your background, and then, just ask a few questions, and we'll ask the community if they have some questions. And just we like to keep it very informal around here.
So we ask the questions and then the community asks.
We'll ask you some questions.
Okay, perfect.
The community will ask you some questions.
Great. Sounds good. I know my co-author, Dr. Marketa Wills, she's running just a tad late. She said she was going to call in and join when she gets to her destination.
Okay.
We got 5 minutes late.
There she is.
Oh, there she is. I was going to say, what's most important is that she's safe driving somewhere.
Yeah.
So.
Hello, Dr. Wills is on.
Hello, Dr. Wills. How are you?
Hello.
I'm great. I will be on camera shortly.
Take your time.
Okay.
Take
your time. And to everyone out there in the community, please tell us what city and state you're in.
Hello. I'm seeing Indiana and California, Palm Beach, Florida, Tennessee in the house, Georgia, Philly, hey.
Hey, Eric.
Hey.
Hi,
Hey,
Eric.
how you doing? Hey, Twana. Hey, Alicia. Hey, Dr. K.
Hey there.
Everybody.
Hello, Atlanta, Georgia. You guys see my family wealth book back there in the background, blurred out a little bit. So
We all have
prominently displayed. I got it this weekend.
New version.
I meant to read a little bit of mine today, and then I didn't have time. So
Yeah, that's for sure.
we just need a few more hours in these days.
Need
few
to
more.
feed it. Well, we're talking about health, mental health today, aren't we? So we might need to woosah.
Exactly.
I need this conversation.
I know. God almighty, yes.
Oh,
Very
goodness.
true.
All right,
Oh, my God.
6:01. We usually start at 6:03, so we'll give it a few more minutes
More
as
minutes.
people continue to come in.
Yes, and let's
I
acknowledge
want to
folks.
respect the time of these beautiful ladies.
Yeah, we got Kansas, California, and Indiana. All right. All right, stay put, cat.
Everybody's going to see our mascot. So
I know.
his
He's
appearance right
reaching
now.
in, he's
Oh yeah,
reaching
he'll pop up in a minute.
in. He's right now here. I'm
Right
just
there.
trying to keep him at bay to get off the keyboard and whatnot. Yeah.
Dr. Keisha has a cat that always jumps in whenever we go live.
Goodness gracious. Been here all day. Apparently nobody's been rubbing the kitty. All right.
I think we can get started at 6:03.
All right, let's do it. Thank you guys for joining us at the 10K Project. My name is Tawana Rivers, and I'm the Chief Operating Officer. We have with us today Talisha Shine, our Chief Technology Officer, Dr. Keisha Waddell, who is our Chief Instructional Officer, and then Eric Spence, who's our business development officer. And we are missing our CEO today. She had something to do at 6 in order to prepare for our 8 o'clock. So she is not happy that she was missing this, but she did ask us to step in and just take care of everything. We're so welcome to invite to us tonight Dr. Carlin Barnes and Dr. Marketa Wills, talking about mental health tonight. They co-wrote a book called Understanding Mental Health, a comprehensive guide to mental health disorders for family and friends. And man, have I been waiting for this topic. This has been a heavy 9 months, and I can feel it weighing on my shoulders. So I know there are other people out here in the community that have questions for you and just want to talk and better understand, how do we cope with what's going on around us? And so ladies, if you can tell us a little bit about yourself, a little bit about your backgrounds, how the two of you got together and wrote this wonderful book, and then we'll talk a little bit about mental health.
Sounds great. Thank you so much, Tawana, and thank you to the 10K Project for inviting us this evening. We are so excited about being here. We are very passionate about mental health, and you hit the nail on the head. This is a year that everybody is trying to take care of and trying to figure out ways to optimize their mental health. So it's a fun story I love to tell. Dr. Wills and I met in 2015. We were both working for the same company at the time. And she actually helped me on board. So I was always in her office like, Dr. Wills, how do you do this? How do you do that? And out of those kind of very necessary, conversations, we learned that we have a lot of similar interests, both professionally and civically and personally. But one thing came to the forefront was that we're both champions for mental health. And we wanted to really expand the conversation beyond our kind of individual spheres of influence. For example, I have a private practice. I'm here in Texas. And Dr. Wills has done some clinical work, but we really wanted to reach communities to engage in the conversation of how they take care of their mental health. So we decided just after a long day of work that we would embark upon writing a book. And I'm like, Dr. Wills, we both are very busy. How are we going to pull this off? And, we just kept plugging ahead and moving forward. And it's our passion project. So here we are, I guess at the time, 4 years later, our book was released by Skyhorse Publishing in September of 2019. So we just celebrated our 1 year anniversary. And we really had the great opportunity to expand the conversation and move the needle forward on ending the stigma of mental illness and improving mental health discussions and how people can take care of themselves and their loved ones and not feel stigmatized by what they may be going through. Anything you want to add, Dr. Wills?
I was just going to add, and lo and behold, it kind of blew us away, but the book ultimately ended up selling out. And so we couldn't believe it, and how much of a platform and a need there was for the book. So we had to go back to our publisher. They were surprised, and work with them and let them know that we needed more copies. So luckily there are copies now on Amazon.com and BarnesandNoble.com, but the book sold out. And we think it was because, after COVID, it just became so palpable and so real to everybody how important mental health is for everything. Yeah. It's the foundation for everything. And so what I'd like to do before we get started is I'd like to turn this into sort of an experiential opportunity for all of us to learn a technique and to learn a skill, which is centering, grounding, and meditation. So we've all had busy days, I'm sure, just given the clientele and the platform that you all have built and all these entrepreneurs. I know that everybody's had a busy day. So let's just take one moment to take 3 deep breaths, roll your shoulders back, close your eyes, and really just breathe in and breathe out, focusing only on your breath. Now, the thing about that is people get a little bit caught up in this because they say, oh my gosh, thoughts are going to come into my head. And yes, they will. That's what the brain is for, to create thoughts. But the idea is bringing your brain and your mind back to the breath. So it's not how many times you stray away. What you're really doing is bringing that muscle to focus back in. It's building that concentration muscle that we're really concerned about when we meditate. So your brain can go away, your mind can go away into a million different directions. Just catch it and non-judgmentally, and don't say I'm not doing this right and I can't do this, and every time I meditate this, that, and the other. Now there will be some people whose brains do go off and they just can't stop. And for those folks who do that, I invite them to move to what I call the channel of gratitude. And so if you just can't stop your mind and your thoughts from racing, just take stock and take note of everything you've been grateful for the day. But I invite us for 2 minutes to just focus on our breath, let the day's events wash off, and let's center for this experience that we're about to have here now.
All right, let's do it. And wiggle your fingers and toes and come back into the space, into the virtual space. So hopefully that sort of washed off the events of the day, and everybody can be a lot more tuned in and ready for today's experience. Made a big difference. Just that small exercise. I really feel like, I mean, this is the first time I've been still today.
Right. So I was thinking the
Wow.
same thing. I was just about to lay in my chair all the way back.
And that's one of the things that we learn, is that it really only takes 2 minutes to really center and focus and come into yourself. And so we like to think of those as micro meditations that we can use. Can you guys see me? I can't see myself.
No, you went away. Yeah.
Oh, rats.
But would you say it's because you were being deliberate about it and intentional? Because I think you said, Tawana, I think this is the only time I've intentionally been able to stop. Because if I wanted to stop, I'm like, oh, I got to do this. So let me get back. Let me get back. In the same way that you're saying, come back to your breath, you know, and allow yourself to just rest for the moment.
Right. And that's a great point, Dr. K, because a lot of what we're talking about during this hour is how do you take care of your mind during COVID and election anxiety and racial injustice and all the things that have been going on for this year. And so you basically have to get back to the basics of taking care of yourself. And that's something that a lot of us do, you know, exercise 3 to 5 times per week, but to be intentional about it. And then to be aware that you're being intentional about it will shift your mindset.
That's absolutely right. That's absolutely right. And so we really think of tying this, particularly to people who are entrepreneurs, to the notion of being able to actively move into your creative zone. And in order to be your best self, to build wealth, in order to be aligned with your true purpose, in order to be able to dig out all the gold that God has put in you, that you know is there, and unleash that, you've got to take care of your temple. And part of taking care of your temple is taking care of your mind. And so we really think of the idea of self-care and taking care of oneself as the true way to unleash all potential that we have. That includes being able to create businesses as well. And we think of that in 4 ways. We've got 4 pillars that we think of. First, optimizing your physical health. Second, optimizing your social health. Third, optimizing your emotional health. And last but not least, optimizing your spiritual health. So that's the framework that we really like to teach around self-care. And during, again, as Dr. Barnes said, during this pandemic time, it's been particularly important to stop, slow down, and think about it. And it's important for everyone, but it's certainly important for our Black entrepreneurs and creators who are creating wealth. So I'll start with physical health and emotional health, and then I'll hand it over to Dr. Barnes to go over social health and spiritual health, if that's okay.
That's perfectly fine.
And I don't know what's going on with my camera. I apologize about that, but we'll just make do. So with regards to physical health, pretty straightforward, no rocket science here. Everything I say is going to be stuff that you guys already know. It's just about figuring out how to do it and fit it in and making it a priority. So first and foremost, making sure that you're exercising 3 to 5 times a week. No surprise there. We always say it's hard to do, but even if you're just stretching for 20 minutes or walking for 20 minutes or dancing to TikTok for 20 minutes, figuring out how to weave that into your week is absolutely critical. It's a must. It's really a must to be at your best self, particularly during this time of high stress when everybody's cortisol levels have shot through the roof. Endorphins can counteract that stress hormone that's building up for all of us, that makes us run to the refrigerator and all of that. Secondly, make sure that you're eating nutritiously and drinking good water, staying hydrated. So those are critical elements and good things to do as well. Making sure that you're getting an adequate amount of sleep. And I know that people are having a hard time with sleep, and I want to define adequate. I can actually talk about sleep for an hour. Dr. Barnes knows this. I have an hour-long talk about sleep that I go through, and I won't bore you guys with all of it because I don't want anybody to fall asleep. But with sleep, in our society, we kind of glorify not being able to sleep. We kind of say, oh, I run on fumes, and oh, I only sleep for 5 hours a day, and oh, I don't need sleep. We all need sleep. And it's not like we all wear the same shoe size. So there is a range. There's a range. It's between 7 and 9 hours a night. So if you want to restore your body so that you can be maximally productive, maximally creative, maximally synergistic, sleeping is absolutely positively critical to do in order that you can restore. And I love there's somebody who talks about this that I think talks about it better than anybody, and that's LeBron, LBJ. They asked him, out of all, as you've gotten older, out of all the things that you do, your cryotherapy, your this, your that, what's the most critical thing that you do to make sure that you stay focused and you stay top of your game? And he always comes back with sleep, that he programs, in fact, everything else in his life around sleep so that he can be laser focused and so sharp. And I think we don't really talk enough about how critically important sleep is. So make sure that you prioritize that, not only for yourselves, but for your children. It's a really important aspect of overall health, including mental health and emotional health. And then last but not least, we're human beings. And so needs for intimacy need to be met. And I know Dr. Barnes and I both do a little couples therapy in our work. And a lot of times people were at the beginning of the pandemic, we were seeing a lot of couples and they were coming in and, you know, she was like, how can we be doing this now? And he was like, well, wait a minute, I need you, right? You know, so I mean, couples got to figure it out. But intimacy is an important thing that we need as human beings as part of our physical health. It's an important part of, again, combating those stress hormones and having a release. And so we think about intimacy as part of our physical health pillar as well. I'll move on, if that's okay, to emotional health next. And people are like, this is another thing I can talk about for hours on a time, but emotional health, when we think about emotional health, with regards to emotional health, first and foremost, we as a people oftentimes kind of are taught to stuff our emotions. We're so strong, and we've had to be so strong historically that we almost even deny ourselves the humanity, really, of being able to have emotions. So you don't want to say I was angry. You don't want to say I was sad. You don't want to say I was frustrated. You don't want to say I was this. You don't want to say I was that. And we kind of like to take that and shove it on its head. Maybe you don't have to tell everybody how you're feeling, but the one person that you need to tell how you're feeling is you. You need to stop. You need to pause. Once a week, you need to just ask yourself, did I have a good week? Did I sleep well? Did I go off on my kids? Did I get into it with people at work? Were they getting on my nerves more than usual? Was I sad? Did I spontaneously cry? And just once a week, just check in and say, how am I doing with my mental health? I mean, that's the main thing, just paying attention to it, just being aware of it. And we're not really taught that. We're not really taught to take a look at ourselves. We're taught to deny that that whole thing exists. I'm normal, I'm fine, I'm not crazy, I'm this, I'm that, I'm fine. But now, as we all see in this stress that we've been under, these are the tools and skills that we need to not only be applying to ourselves, but to our children, and giving them that ability to be introspective and take a look and pause and see how they're doing emotionally. And then the other things I'm going to be talking about are all common sense. It's all going to make sense. It's about, as Dr. Barnes so eloquently said at the beginning, just being more and more and more and more every day intentional about it. So intentionally look for silver linings in every single last interaction. Intentionally flip all challenges and problems over into opportunities. Intentionally take everything negative and say, all right, what's the lesson in this? This didn't happen to me. It happened for me. And I got to dig and figure out what that is. And just having that mindset as you approach everything in life, So it's just a slight pivot to, oh, the people at work was doing this and they was doing that and they was doing this. Well, you know, if you believe in the perfect divine order of things, that was something that was put in place for you to sharpen you. So take it that way and take it as a learning lesson and be curious about it. Just have that curious mind. The other things as far as emotional health, taking time to, we say this all the time, enjoy the roses, smell the roses. And by that, I mean really finding ways to connect with nature. Nature is an important way of restoring ourselves. So that can look like a lot of different things. That can look like gardening. That can look like being a plant mom or dad. That can look like fishing. That can look like hiking. That can look like swimming. That can look like going to the beach. That can look like a lot of different things. But again, being intentional about it and saying, hey, I'm going to make sure that I put this into my life, my kids' lives, my family's life, so that we can be restored, because this is part of what God has put on this earth for us to enjoy. And so I'm going to make sure that we're going to enjoy that. And that's what fills us back up. Those are the things that fill us back up. Meditation, and we did a small meditation earlier today, emotional health. So now you can't say you never did it. You done it. You done it at least one time. You know how to stop for 2 minutes and get centered and get grounded. So meditation, you can do it in micro minutes, 2 minutes. You can do it in macro minutes. I have for the past 2 years, even before pre-COVID, have been meditating, getting up for 20 minutes a day. That's it. 20 minutes a day, and everything in my life has totally been flipped around and transformed. It's just such a powerful, powerful way of relaxation. And really, it only takes, I say to my patients, about 5 minutes a day. 20 minutes is actually way longer than you need. 5 minutes a day, waking up 5 minutes earlier, that's it, before you get your day started, and taking that time just to sit. Dr. Barnes will talk about prayer later and how it relates, but meditation is separate from prayer, and we both are Christians and praying women. So, but this is slightly different. This is about emotional health. Same way exercise is about physical health, clearing the mind, clearing the brain, letting it settle from the clutter is about emotional optimization. And then last but not least, on the emotional health side, is finding ways just to have fun, making sure that it's not just work, it's not just family, but you've got hobbies too. Because hobbies imply developing a skill, figuring something out that you enjoy doing, whether it be putting together puzzles or crocheting or sewing or toy cars, model planes, whatever. Those kind of things take you away from your normal life and allow you an opportunity to escape, learn, grow, and then you can apply those skills back. So just making sure that we don't shortchange ourselves from those types of things that bring us pleasure and bring us joy, and that then better inform who we are as we're making those decisions, critical decisions in the boardroom, critical decisions about company growth, critical decisions about hiring and firing in other people's lives. We've already done that work, that we're settled and centered and are able to do that. And with that, I will pass it over to Dr. Barnes to talk about the last two pillars.
Thank you, Dr. Wills. And so the third of the pillar is social health. And I think that this is especially important since everything we've heard, a lot of things we've heard about this year kind of hinge on social distancing. How can I still engage in activities and fellowship with people that I love and be safe? And so while it's extremely important for what we're going through now with the pandemic, we have to really be careful and mindful and intentional. There's that word again, right? To cultivate positive social interactions, because we spend so much of our day at work and being productive and checking off tasks that we're social beings. And in order to be the most fulfilled beings, we need to tap into and fulfill that aspect of our lives so that we can mitigate against loneliness. We know that people that experience loneliness have increased rates of both physical disease and mental disease, mental health conditions. And so it's really important to have positive, affirming, supportive social networks. So what are ways that we can do that? Recently, we've had to be creative and meet with forums like this, Zoom and video platforms. And I can't tell you the number of Zoom parties that I've attended. Had one myself for my birthday just a few months ago. But those types of things, even though we're physically distancing, they keep us connected to others larger than ourselves. And another way that we can do it to tap into social wellness, social health, is to be grateful. So we did a little, Dr. Wills talked about that exercise of thinking of ways that you are experiencing gratitude in your life. So every day it's important to be intentional and mindful in thinking of ways that you have experiences that you have had and what you're grateful for that day. As we interact with others, another important thing to remember is to assume positive intent. Maybe that person was rude to you because it's not you or an interaction with you. Maybe they're dealing with a lot. Maybe they lost a loved one to COVID. So assume positive intent in all social interactions. And again, that will shift your mindset. Say thank you. Give compliments. Sincere compliments. You don't have to know the person that's checking you out at the grocery store, but if you admire their customer service, tell them, because that will not only maybe be something that they're grateful for, but it will allow you the opportunity to sow into the life of another person, if only for that moment. You can also find ways to be helpful. One thing that I tell my son when he's home for the holidays, he's in college, is that, we're going to go and engage in a community service activity. We're going to go and help someone else. And that will strengthen your social engagement, not only with the person or persons that you're involved in that activity with, but with the larger community, because we're all tied to one another on some level. And that again will mitigate against loneliness. If you have a challenging person or situation, it's important not to say, oh, I don't want to deal with that. My coworker, she's always in a bad mood. But as Dr. Will said, think about the opportunities for growth for you and what that experience is teaching you about yourself. And that will shift your mindset. Lastly, I will say that it's always helpful, and this is one that is especially useful to me, is if I am at kind of a point of disagreement maybe, but just maybe not clear on the messages or the social engagement, it's helpful to say, like Dr. Will said, a curious mind, help me to understand. Help me to understand why it is that this project needs to have this deadline. It'll change your mindset into kind of coming from a powerless position to a curious mind. And that's a lot more gratifying. And I think that at this point, I'll shift to the spiritual health, our last pillar. So we talked about social, emotional health, social health, physical health, and it's really important to exercise your faith. And again, that's been challenging for a lot of people because of COVID and, not being able to connect physically with a body of fellowshippers. However, there's still other ways that we can do that even during the times of the pandemic. It's vitally important. Not everyone worships the same higher power or prays to the same God, but it's really important for your emotional health and wellness if you are able to connect daily with whatever higher power that you have in your life. That again takes the focus off of us and puts it to a larger purpose in our lives. A lot of people may find it helpful to read their text daily or listen to some type of spiritual Christian praise and worship daily. And that would be a good way to tie into the physical exercise piece too, because some songs, we all Kirk Franklin shout and, kind of the faster upbeat, you can get some exercise in and, kind of tackle a couple different areas. But it's really, really important to kind of sit quietly daily and to meditate on, to be intentional in thinking of what is your higher power, because you will find that all the areas of your life, work, entrepreneurial efforts, relationships will then begin to make sense and have a purpose.
I love this. I'm always big on actionable items, and you guys just gave us a bunch of actionable items for these 4 pillars. People can really walk away and start exercising all of these activities currently. I want to go back a little bit though to something you said earlier, is that stigma, right? When we think about seeking professional help from a mental health standpoint, so many are discouraged. And I wonder if it's because they don't realize the activities can be as practical as you just made them, right? There was no intimidation with anything that you said. Even though I connected with several of those things you talked about, I don't feel crazy, right? You delivered it in a way that I was able to receive it. How do we break down that stigma so that others in our community can feel that same intention with going to seek care?
Right. That's a great question, and it's one that we talk about in our book. But I think that one of the biggest ways to do it is to have forums like this, to bring the conversation into our churches, bring the conversation into our civic organizations, bring the conversations around mental health into our dinner tables with our families. Because I think that for so long, people thought, oh, the crazy person or the crazy uncle that comes over for Christmas dinner and talks to himself and so forth. And so people ostracize people with mental health conditions. But as you so eloquently stated, Tawana, you can have a mental health condition that can be, I have a fear of public speaking, and these are the ways that I'm going to tackle that. And so we have to really destigmatize what mental health or mental illness is. And the way that we do that is to educate in very non-threatening ways. I just love that Instagram has a lot of content now about therapy for Black girls. And I know Taraji P. Henson is talking about mental health. And so, there are various shows on television. I remember when that show with Terrence Howard and Taraji P. was really popular. And one of the Empire had bipolar illness and was living with that. And so to begin to bring it into our everyday life, and also in ways that we are engaging. And so that it doesn't seem like it's a them issue or a socioeconomic issue, but it's an everybody issue, no matter what your color is, no matter your income level is. The statistics show us that 1 in 5 US adults every year will suffer from some type of mental illness. Now, if you talk about serious mental health conditions, then it's like 1 in 10, but it's very common, it's very treatable. We just gave you, like you said, 4 pillars. It doesn't cost much at all to do any of these things, but can make you a healthier and thereby a wealthier you.
I wanted to add to something you were just saying too. We do tend to try to make it too difficult, just too much, whereas what you just did there was just, it's the simple things. It's just the simple things that confound the wise. As you just mentioned too, that, it's a bit of a spectrum. If we stay in these little behaviors, they can perhaps manifest into something that's more serious, because we didn't deal with it in its small state. And it's just so good to know that, just very simple activities like you just mentioned, and we're able to do it. We're hard workers. It's just time to turn in just a little bit without it being selfish. I know I always say self-care isn't selfish, but we have to really believe that it can't just be an Instagram post. You know what I mean? You have to really walk that out.
That's right. Can I build on that, Dr. Keisha? Because I think a lot of people say, if I've got, we in our slide deck, which I wasn't able to pull up, we've got some, what are all the excuses that people come up with not to practice self-care that we talk about? Well, I need time with my family, any extra time I need to be funneling into my business, oh, it's going to be expensive. You're thinking massages at a Four Seasons hotel, whatever the barrier you have in your mind, I would almost invite you to say, I can't afford not to do this, because if I don't do this, I can't be my most creative. I can't be my best self. So what we've talked about here, for the most part, is really about emotional and mental wellness, right? Like how to maintain wellness so that, as you said, Dr. Keisha, nothing happens exterior. Because what we did know also was that generally speaking, about 15 to 20% of Americans have anxiety or depression at any given time. But with COVID, that number jumped to 30 to 40% of Americans because people were under stress. And I think people had a lot more appetite for hearing this kind of content because it was coming into their everyday lives. Before, it was kind of out there, you know, like you talked about the uncle, the this, the that. It wasn't me, it was my friend. But with COVID, it came into everybody's home because we were stressed, not just for a short period of time, but over and over and over and over and over again. And that's a physiologic reaction that happens there. Hormones, you know, fight or flight, cortisol, epinephrine, it happens. And you got to figure out, how do I take care of myself during the stress, whether you decide to put your head in the sand about it or not. You know, people weren't sleeping. A lot of times people weren't sleeping, you know, so it gave, I think, us an opportunity to have even more powerful conversations about this, so that then when there is someone who's sick, or when there is someone who has gotten symptomatic to a level where they've reached a diagnosable condition, there's a different threshold, understanding, and respect for allowing that person to get the care that they deserve, rather than just kind of saying, deal with it on your own, just be strong, just deal with it. So I think people's minds have shifted as a society because it's become more real to them.
But you know what, you bring up another point though too. At the same time, that while this mental health idea has become more, more commonly heard, but at the same time, you know, misery loves company, and you can actually, you know, but we have to really be intentional about what comes in our ears and our eyes, because it's all there to, you know, push you even further down down a bad path. So, it's going to be important to be sure that we use these techniques that you're talking about, because, like I said, misery loves company. If you're already kind of in a bad place, there's a lot that can feed that too. So, I guess my question to you is, how can you help a person guard themselves against that?
So guarding themselves against the negativity. Great question. Just make sure that your own signal or vibration, or whatever you want to call it, is positive, so that you can, have overflow to be able to manage effectively when somebody comes into your sphere who's a little bit negative, and rise above. And then make sure that you're, again, radiating the right signal or emitting the right frequency, so that you can attract, more positive people. It's tough because when generally speaking, when someone gets so negative, and trust us, we see that a lot. We see people who are, we got to be careful ourselves, because we end up seeing people who are very, very ill. And so that's why we have to learn, as professionals who manage people who are very, very ill, how to keep our energy level up, how to go through the 4 pillars every day, so that we can sustain and be there for people who are low, laid out on the ground, flat, and no one can deal with it. And so at that point, that's when you have to go into your trained professionals, if they're at that point, and just sort of say, hey, have you thought about therapy? Have you thought about therapy? There are medications for different things, and we do, both of us are prescribers for medications. It takes time to, that's not what we're here to talk about today, but when someone is that ill, because sometimes the negativity can really end up being symptomatic, they're symptomatic. And then some people are just negative Nellies personality wise, and you just got to figure out how to build a sphere, a zone to kind of protect yourself, manage it, and move on. But you do have to be careful, because our personality, and we all know this, you guys know this as business leaders, it's contagious.
Yeah.
You as the leader have to stay up so that your business can be healthy, so that your staff can be, healthy, and so that the organization can be healthy. And so you got to stay up. And one bad apple in there is going to put a whole negative spin on everything in an organization. And so just managing and being proactive about it, I think is important, and having your antenna up for it is important as well.
Absolutely.
I have a question, Dr. Marketa and Dr. Carlin. As we are a tool, a platform for crowdfunding, and also a tool that both investors and entrepreneurs are going to use to build wealth. What advice do you have for people when they experience loss? Oftentimes, things don't go well for both the investor and also for the entrepreneur. And often, I think we have seen times when people can find themselves in this spiral of catastrophizing and believing that things are always now going to continually not go well for them. Like, what strategies do you have for people to help them break out of that cycle and to not do that? I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Well, I think that being an entrepreneur myself, having a private practice, has been especially challenging for me this year, because first there was kind of the lull with COVID, and now there's kind of the boom with, the increase in need because of the mental health crisis that's lagging behind all the other crises that we're experiencing. It was especially helpful for me to connect with other entrepreneurs and to be open in dialogue about what we're all going through, because it gives you that support. It gives you that support, and also to stay focused on, this is a moment in time. I've had it to think back when things were good, and things will be good again. And as you said, Eric, not to kind of catastrophize it and think that this is how it's going to be forever and ever. This will pass. I just need to dig in there. I might need to be resourceful and pivot and shift to other areas. I've picked up some other contracts, and to know that just like everything, there are ebbs and there flows, and that this too will pass.
Got it. Okay, that's helpful.
Very good question. We've got a couple of questions in the chat, so I'll read some. Stephen Martin says, how can we separate a product of my environment that is sometimes used for bad behavior with mental health? Can they run hand in hand? Can one cause the other?
So I actually, Carlin and I have talked about this. We talk a lot about mental health with each other. But we actually believe that, if I think I'm interpreting this question correctly, that a product of my environment is that, as a society, our culture, the Black culture, has experienced so much trauma, intergenerational trauma that gets passed down epigenetically. And it has created the symptoms of which look like destructive behavior, look like a bad environment, look like lack of sanctity, lack of appreciation of the sanctity of life, look like substance abuse, look like alcoholism, look like so many things that we see in our community if a community has gone through trauma. And so, one of the things that we're trying to figure out in inner cities is how to create a space for healing circles. Because there's some deep intergenerational healing that needs to go on in our community. And so, it does look like a product of my environment. It does look like I don't care, I'm cussing, I'm doing whatever, I'm acting out, I'm being this, I'm, not paying attention to rules. We call that conduct disorder. All of that is what we know we all have been through, which is a great deal of 400 years of trauma. And so if we could get at some of the, healing techniques and creating spaces, and that's one of the things that we've been thinking a lot about in this particular moment in time, given all of what's going on with racial injustice. And we've been thinking about that with a lot of our colleagues and peers. There is an organization called the Black Psychiatrists of America that we do support, and a lot of our colleagues in there. We've been thinking collectively, how can we at this time do some healing? Because I think that's what that question is getting at, Stephen, which is why do we look like this as a community when you go back? And really, I do think it's not having been successfully healed. We got a lot of healing to do, and some of us can go through it individually, but I think there's something around creating a shared space to be able to do some of that collectively. And I'm hoping that, in this lifetime, we'll be able to get at some of that.
Yeah, that's good. I don't mind sharing that throughout my life, I've felt the need to talk to someone. But for me, I'm a very private person. Trust is a big issue with me. And historically, you don't put the face of a psychiatrist or psychologist with a Black female or a Black male, right? I envision an old white man. I don't know why, but that's what I envisioned. And that wasn't attractive to me. There's nothing I want to share about my most inner thoughts and my most inner fears with an old white man, and I'm sure they're amazing in their field. I just didn't connect on that level. And so in instances where I may have really needed to deal with some things that have occurred, I didn't. I rejected it because that image of what I thought the help looked like, I rejected that. And so, I love that you just mentioned the Black Psychiatrists of America, because I think we need to know there are people out there that specialize in this, that look like us and that understand the generational trauma and can speak to it in a way that connects with us. And we don't have to be fearful anymore that trust will be upheld and that we can really find someone that understands and won't be judgmental about it.
That's right. That's right. And there's a Black Psychologists of America group too for therapy.
Wonderful.
Very collaborative organizations that work with each other and have for many decades now.
I think this is also an important time to rely on the resources that are also available to us. I know now, working in the healthcare environment, that specifically there was a lot of focus put on healthcare benefits that were mental. A lot of people always concentrate on, I need to just make sure I get my, teeth clean and all that. But this year specifically, there was a lot of effort put into, do you know what your mental health benefits are? Do you know that it's 100% covered, depending on your insurance, to go to talk to someone? And my company specifically made it a very poignant moment to say, these are the resources that look like you. They put together and aggregated a list of Black professionals that range from psychology to psychiatrists that spoke directly to us as a general aspect to our internal company, but also to be able to provide the actual customer, our end customer, with that list as well. So they were making sure, like, if in fact you are a person of color, which that's, their tagline for it, we have resources for you, instead of just a litany of like, here's some that you have, just pick. They were really aggregated and populated based upon the population. And I think that's also very important, that they were trying to not only say, hey, we want you to feel better, but we're also going to give you the resources and tools to make that possible for you, so that, we know that there's hurdles. Just everything was a hurdle at this point. Just to see your doctor was probably a hurdle. So we're going to do our best to eliminate that. And I think that's a really important thing. And we don't often talk about that. Again, health insurance, people say, well, I got good insurance. They just talk about going to the doctor. I think we need to frame that also in, like, did you go see what kind of professional that you're going to see? Because not all the time do you need, your wellness actually is a combination of the two, not just exclusively your physicality.
Yeah, that's a very good point, Talisha. Let's see if we have any other questions. Jan says, mental health is one of the top reasons for disability claims. I tell clients that there was a stigma around cancer years ago and people whispered about it. Now we have cancer walks, runs, etc. Remind people that they wouldn't let a physical injury go untreated. So please seek mental health treatment. Very good point, Jan. Very good point. And then Diana says, I have a friend that has mental health issues. She's always fighting the stigma of it and is trying to educate people around it. Good for her. That's what we need, more people like that championing it for us so that we can feel comfortable going to seek the care. Any other questions? I just want to say, ladies, this has been wonderful. I think you could come back and spend 2 hours about each pillar.
Yeah, each pillar deserves its own time.
Each pillar needs its own due time. It really
This is
does.
a good series. I think this is a 4-part series, and you talk about one of those, and you throw in 5. 5 is sleep, because I constantly hear that, that entrepreneurs are, that woke game. I need to stay up.
Yeah.
And
I'm hustling, right? I never
have to say, like, you sleep when you're dead, but no, like, that's not what I want to do. I've always advocated for sleep. I do best when I'm sleepy. You can tell if I'm hungry or cold or sleepy, it's not a good thing. We're not productive. So I think that's the really key. And so all 4 of these together, I think, do deserve their own spot. And then to talk about sleep in a very important way, I think is.
Yeah, I agree. And I don't know that I'd say sleep for 5, Talisha. I think I'd start with sleep. So my issue is, I know I don't get enough. You said 7, you started at 7 hours. I'm like,
that's right.
I'm way below that.
Okay. That's imperative.
I wake up at the same time every day like clockwork. No alarm clock. I've never woken up to an alarm clock. I wake up automatically at about 5:17. Not really sure why it's always not on the hour and a half now, but it's like 5:17. My issue is I can't turn off in the evening and go to sleep. My brain is just moving. All the things I didn't do, all the things I probably should have done better, all the things I still need to do. Like, I can't turn it off. And so that's my issue. So it doesn't matter what time I go to sleep. I'm still going to wake up at the same time.
Yeah.
So I never
meditate for 10 minutes before you go to sleep. It's all about sleep. That we call that sleep hygiene. So number 1, no blue screens. No blue screens. That's TV. Okay. That's phone. That's iPad. That's what else is that? All of that. Leave that alone for 1 hour before you go to sleep, because the blue light messes with your melatonin, which is your sleep hormone that regulates sleep. So disconnect totally. No news at night. No news at night. I think 11 p.m. news is the worst thing that you could possibly have been invented, because all that does is get you jazzed up hearing about who got shot, who got killed, who got robbed, who got this, who got that. So news at night is a no-no, absolute no-no. The bed is only for sleep and intimacy. That's it. Nothing else. No reading, no eating, no nothing. And then you're not if you have problems falling asleep. And then get yourself a little list so that all the things that you're worried or ideas that you're worried about losing, you write them down. And the other thing that we like to say is, have a routine. Drink your chamomile tea, have that routine. If you want to be in bed by 11, I guess, but that's late to me. They know I'm in bed by like 9 or 10. Everybody know I'm in bed by 9 or 10. By 11, if you want to go to bed at 11, by 9, start winding down. So if you have that much of a problem, by 9, start winding down. Then take your bath, have your chamomile tea, sniff your lavender aroma, make a routine, put your candle on, say your prayer, do your meditation, make your routine, and make sure all blue light is off by 9. And then by the time that 11 o'clock or whatever time you want to go, 11's real late. But if 11 is what you want to do, you've got your routine and you've trained your body into that. And we call that sleep hygiene. So
I love that.
Okay, well, I received that. That's my homework assignment. It's gonna be hard, but I receive it. I know I need to do better. I've always known I need to do better. So now at least I have an actionable item, right? So I can work towards that. This has been amazing, ladies. Thank you so very much. we absolutely would love for you guys to come back. So Cherie will be in touch because we do need a series out of this, because to your point earlier, we can't build wealth if we're not healthy. And so we need to be healthy. And after the year we're coming off of, we need a whole lot of health, love, and wellness and all of that mixed together, because it's been rough. It's been really rough. And so, you know, I love that there's a forum like this that we could come to and talk about things. I love that you wonderful women went to school for this practice. And I love that you're out there helping people and saving lives. And so, you know, thank you for all that you do for this community and other communities as well. Just thank you for your passion around this topic. And thank you for those 4 pillars, because we just learned a lot in a short amount of time.
Thank you for having us. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Guys,
Good
have a
night, everybody. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Yes, continue to protect your energy.
That's right.
All
Good
right.
night, everybody.
Good night.